good morning. I believe we are live. Good morning, everyone. Hello. We have Mr. JoshuaLund here. Somebody let me know that you're hearing me. I'm always changing my setup. You know how it is. I take the cue from Brett. I see a hello all from Marco. That's a good start. Training, learning, development chat. Training, learning, development chat. TLDC, TLDC. Training, learning, development chat. Training, learning, development chat. TLDC, TLDC. Training, learning, development chat. Training, learning, development chat. TLDC, TLDC. Training, learning, development chat. Training, learning, development chat. TLDC, TLDC. Training, learning, development chat. Training, learning, development chat. TLDC, TLDC. Training, learning, development chat. Training, learning, development chat. TLDC, TLDC. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Hopefully we're gonna be talking about music and learning. Music and learning today. Learning technology. From TLDC, your training, learning, and development chat. Training, learning, and development community. We have a special guest today, JoshuaLund, who is the nexus between learning and development and music learning. Looking forward to a great time today. Okay, I can see that you hear me. Thank you for hearing me. Thank you for hearing me. And I have one more volume knob that I forgot. There we go. Okay, that's the one. I forgot I had it running through the mains as well. Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to TLDChat. Brent Schlenker is not here today. We miss him, but he's off doing his EdCast thing. And we have a fantastic guest who I really know very little about, but I'm really excited to talk to today because we're going to be talking about music and learning technology. Any instructional design stuff you want to talk about is fair game. Keep it rolling in the chat. Welcome, Joshua.
Hi, everybody. Like he said, I'm JoshuaLund. I am a senior instructional technology consultant at DePaul University in Chicago. I am a former music professor, and I now am on the other side of the podium, and I'm a mad scientist. I play with stuff all day, and I teach professors how to use it. We help them navigate the issues with designing online courses, making the transition from face-to-face to online courses. And so I'm not always doing ID and music stuff together, although one of the colleges I serve here for DePaul is the School of Music. And so I do get opportunities to get my hands wet, get my feet wet doing these kinds of things as I'm helping professors move into what's increasingly an online space and trying to find good ways to continue teaching in an authentic way that is still going to benefit their students in the same way that it did back in the day when we did everything in an analog way and hand wrote on paper and all those kinds of things. Had to go to the music library and check out LPs to sit there in a cubicle and listen to things. CDs, right? Yeah, pretty much. Those big black spinny things, that some people have on their walls at home. Yeah, we actually used those once upon a time. Yeah. something like that. So I'm occasionally a performer these days. I'm occasionally a private instructor. I am actually teaching a class here for DePaul on the Beatles and the creative process. So I am actually being able to do some music stuff now again that I've been here for several years. But this is one of my passions, because I have always, as myself being kind of a tech savvy guy, and since I was in the rock and roll world for so many years, I learned all the equipment, that I had to deal with for that. So at this point, I do get to do some of this work here and there, and it's fun when I can keep things moving with technology, but be able to stay true to my roots where I came from.
Great. Well, that's a fantastic kind of picture of the life you've led that brought you to this moment. So doing mostly instructional design kind of stuff, I read a couple of your posts just in preparing for today. You often treat them as separate worlds. I'm a musician and performer and stuff as well. And for years it was like my best kept secret that like this dual life kind of thing.
Yeah.
But fortunately these days, I think as we get to see more of the people that we know and respect in social media and stuff, here's my Nobel Prize and here's my kittens kind of in the same feed. It's not quite as much of a need to keep that secret identity a secret. I found myself. I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit. How music has either hurt or helped your credibility as an instructional designer.
It absolutely has helped my credibility, even given that my primary client, the one that has the most faculty that I work with, is the College of Business. So actually, I am completely out of my element talking with people about time value of money and the capital asset pricing model and things like this. But I will say that in particular, one of the things that we do a lot is we help faculty produce lecture videos and things like that to bring that online. And so I'm the AV guy in my department because I've had all of this experience with the equipment, and I've been shooting videos on the computer for better than 20 years now. And so me coming into the department was kind of a natural fit there. And so I have a lot of street cred as far as that goes, because they know that I have the technical expertise in that area to help them look and sound great. And some of them that choose only to don't choose to be on camera, that only want to be sort of podcasted, they know that we've got a setup in our studio that will really help them get the most out of what they want to get from there. With the music people particularly, it lends me a lot of street cred because I can talk the talk with a music theory instructor or a history literature or a performance instructor, and really be able to talk to them in more concrete terms. I have to deal with it in the abstract with business professors. Okay, so how would you like them to hand this into you? And how do you want to assess this versus, okay, so then we have to talk about notation. And so how are you going to quiz them on this? All right, so what are you moving to next? Are you going to do intervals after that? Or are you going to do, and so being able to talk the talk with them in particular has really helped me sort of bridge the gap, especially in music, because music is our least online college, right. one of our least online colleges. And although we have some online courses, we don't really have people leveraging the technology that's out there, even within our learning management system, as much as they probably could be.
Yeah, I'd love to follow that a bit more. That was one of the posts that I had read of yours was about that, how music tends to be kind of lagging behind all of the other learning technologies, and in part for good reason, because of the inherent latency of the internet. We can't really have a simultaneous musical experience like you would in a room if we were to play something together. Although that's getting better all the time. And of course,
over the last 10 years, it's significantly better. Yeah,
it's significantly better. And there's also things that you can do to like play with the offset so that it's a certain number of beats or something like that. So it still has a musical feel to it, even though it's not the same moment. But I'd love it if you could speak a little bit to, aside from that one resistance, which is a technical limitation.
Mhm.
What other resistances have you encountered from the music side of things as being slow adopters to technology?
It's interesting because on one side of the School of Music, they're super high tech and
Right.
they have everything because we have a recording technology major. And so these people are doing buttons and knobs and this stuff all day long, all day and night. And their instructors are fantastically independent. I mean, don't need any help with anything. When they do ask me questions, it's super high level stuff because they are comfortable enough with the technology that they dove right in. Now, on the other hand, we have people like the professors in theory or in history and literature or in performance who either see such a huge volume of work to get all of my readings online, to get all of my listening online, that they don't, that they see it as a barrier to entry, that they don't want to, they don't want to have to put in the time. So, for those people, it's me reassuring them that it's not just me. Even I have a team behind me that if I need help with this stuff, and we have the library that can help you, and all these to pointing out the resources for the performance faculty and some of those folks. They don't always seem to see the value in, why would I have a course site? All I do is teach trumpet lessons, for instance. And so to them, I've been trying to sell the idea that we'll make a site for your studio classes so that you can put scores here for them to look at. You can put listening examples there for them to look at. If you want to, you can record your studio classes and we can put them up there, just to find ways for them to leverage some of that kind of thing, and to just get them in the door, really, because just some of the plain vanilla options that every instructor can use online, the online quizzes, the fact that I can make an HTML syllabus and just have to edit it every quarter instead of downloading and making a new copy and uploading again, just some of those easy tasks I can sell them on when I get them over the big hurdle. This is why it would be worthwhile to you to do some of this stuff online. And, I'm not saying teach all your lessons online, because I'll talk about that a little later. That was a disaster when I tried to do that.
Yeah.
But the idea that, this technology is here to help you, and there are things that you can make a lot of use of to get some of this out of the way and get back to the music.
So being able to take anything that's a repeatable process and basically make that self-serve or automated in some way, or leverage the technology so that that's a one-time job in some way.
Absolutely. Reusable content is something that you want to think about anywhere. If I taught music theory online years ago, and one of the things that I made very important in that was I guess this in a way was almost a little bit flipped learning before they were talking about it. And someone actually already mentioned this in the chat over here. But yeah, I'd make a short little video and talk about notation. And talk about the different clefs, and it'd be maybe 10 minutes long or something. But then they'd come into class the next day and we'd talk about it, and I'd spend the time having them do some examples and work on these kinds of things instead of talking about that same thing over and over again. And that being a class that I taught pretty much every quarter, it was really nice to just put the videos in there and deal with that. Absolutely. The reusable stuff is a must. I advocate to people these days, and it seems obvious when you think about it, but there are so many people who put lecture videos and they say, welcome to MUS 402 for winter quarter 2017.
Yeah, right.
And if you're using a video that you could reuse in this class, you don't want to tell them what quarter it is. If you could use it in another class, you don't want to tell them what class it is. So it's just, it's a matter of trying to keep that stuff as agnostic as you can. Don't tell us it's chapter 4, because the next edition of the textbook, that same chapter might be chapter 6. And then, then you have to reshoot. So yeah, absolutely.
So in terms of what those reusable chunks would be, as an instructional designer, are you finding that there's some kind of rules of thumb that might be different for different audiences, like for the performance students that you're talking about, or for working with the business college or whatever? Or is it the same kind of general rules of thumb that apply across the board?
In general, what we find, and it's pretty across the board, there is research out there, and I'm actually doing some research right now about some of the ideal video length for an online lecture, and whether or not, we always advocate keeping them short, and the data from other people's studies and from mine that I'm finishing up do definitely seem to indicate that the longer your video is, the less of it students are going to watch. And so keeping it in those bite-sized pieces is really, really essential. If you think back to when you were a student, you probably, if you were assigned to read a few chapters for class, probably the first thing you did was go to the back and read the chapter summary, which is about 2 paragraphs long and contains all the essential terminology and all that stuff. That's sort of what I encourage instructors to think of their videos as, kind of a quick capsule review, because that way, give them everything they need to know. You don't have to keep restating example after example, because they can rewind you. Right. You know, some of that stuff, just keep it as short as you can, and then you can assess them somewhere, or you can send them to a discussion board to talk about what they just did, or something like that. But yeah, you want to keep the video content as short as possible. I'm getting preliminary figures here that are suggesting that ideally, if you want your students to watch most or all of this video, you're going somewhere between about 6 and 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, every Friday here on TLD Chat is our Video Friday, where we talk about specifically video stuff. Sometimes we bleed into audio stuff. Sometimes Thursday is more audio kind of focused every once in a while. And it all kind of blurs together, though. So anything that you want to contribute about your video experience are most welcome as well. With regards to any recommendations that you would make for other folks working with the arts specifically? I saw in the chat Bethany has worked with some pipe and drum bands and music theory and things like that. For those of us who are dealing with topics that are more arts focused, excuse me, do you have any suggestions or observations, things that you could share about that experience?
The biggest challenge for me in music and in the arts in general, because I've also taught general arts appreciation with art and literature and theater as well, the biggest challenge has always been translation. How to get this stuff to work online. I first started teaching music theory online in 2004, and at this point, publisher test banks were a future dream. Mm-hmm. So when I was making online exams, I was literally opening up the Koskapane theory textbook and Xerox, scanning pages out of it, and then cutting out these graphics to say, identify this chord. And I would have to do this just over and over again for all of them. And, I couldn't get it to do proper chord notation in the LMS or in a word processor. So I had to also take all of those chord symbols out of the book. And it was, back in the days when you made worksheets for your students by cutting things out and scotch taping them to stuff and putting them in the copier. We had things like that. I was teaching online. Well, actually, it was distance education more than it was strictly online, because I had live college sessions through the Iowa College Network. If any of you are out there, you know that it's basically closed circuit TV. And so I'd be playing listening example for this class and literally switching out CDs because, and holding the microphone up to it because I couldn't put them online. Just a few years later, all of a sudden, listening lists could go online, and there was no longer this huge bottleneck for my students to listen to things. They could go home and listen to them. And the biggest barriers of entry have always been, how am I gonna change this? So I've also had an example doing a conducting class, and I did this as a hybrid because I didn't think I could do it entirely online. That's that piece that makes it so difficult in the arts is that translation, because I cannot online communicate to you directly how it feels to use a paintbrush, what it feels like with this kind of paint versus that kind of paint. Or I think back to my string bass lessons as an undergrad. There were so many times, I can't duplicate how it's supposed to feel when you're correctly position shifting, or I don't have someone there saying, drop your shoulder when you're playing, or relax your bow hand here a little bit. So some of that kind of stuff is very difficult to do. The traditional conducting class, when I went in, what you did was you'd go in and the students would be an ensemble for you, and you'd conduct these excerpts, and every one of us had to buy a VHS tape, and they'd record us, and then we could go home and watch our tape and listen to our reflections. Well, now they do that with digital video. And one of the things that I did for this hybrid class was I had the students record themselves doing this. And so it's easy enough, just set your phone up and do your examples. And so they were able to submit examples to me that way. And it was a little more difficult for the music. There was something that I didn't quite get to work, but there's some of you may be familiar with Versace, the Intelligent Accompanist. It's a program that actually you can plug. There's a microphone that can go onto your instrument, and it listens to you as you're playing, so it adjusts the tempo to go with you.
Oh, wow.
So I really wanted to get that to work with conducting, so that if they dropped a beat or something, that it would notice, but I ended up having to just use canned examples for them. But at least being able to have them submit the video meant that I didn't have to spend the time listening to the same excerpt 22 times in class that day, but that they could all get some evaluation of things. They could do peer review of each other's videos. There's so many options there. The other big things for me have been, I'll do a little show and tell.
Sure.
Handwriting technology. Handwriting technology has been huge, because that's been allowing, it has allowed instructors to annotate slides while they're talking to you in a video, but at the same time, it has also allowed people like music instructors the freedom to handwrite things. So being able to, annotate on an iPad, or, using devices like, if you want to just get into it, just basic, there's the bamboo pad from Wacom. This thing's about $70, and it'll function as a stylus. For those of you who are on Macs, my PC friends with Surfaces all say that's the way to go. So any of you who've got one of those, you're already set. Some of the other things, the Leap Motion controller is actually my sort of future fun thing. Let's see. Can it see it? Yep, there it is. It's a little bigger than a flash drive, and it's an interactive controller, so I can use my fingers for things. And there are programs out there that will let you actually play a virtual piano or strum a virtual guitar. I love it. It's this also is about $70, but it's so, for me, I don't think I'm quite ready to use it yet. I would love to be able to do conducting examples, for instance, with that, to sell that to my conducting instructors, because they could have people do it in a virtual space live. Or, just being able to handwrite with a pencil, actually handwrite something on the screen, just holding my hand, because it works on a field. So I'm just hovering my hand over this thing and it picks me up. Problem is, it's so sensitive that the learning curve is really, really hard.
Learning a theremin, huh?
Kind of. You see these the promo videos for the thing, and they show these people using their hand to fly around in Google Earth, and it looks super awesome. But when I tried to do it, I either end up on the bottom of the ocean or way out in space, because it's so sensitive that the slightest little movement, and it's like, wow, there goes the moon. So. Yeah, but there's a lot of the technologies that are enabling us to have more sort of analog skills, to bring some of that analogness back in. I just had the idea the other day, and I haven't actually tried this, so don't quote me on this. I don't know if this works, but I taught virtual guitar lessons once, and it was a disaster because of all the things I couldn't, adjust my student's position. There's all that touch that you can't do. It just occurred to me I could have a student record himself and then draw a line and say, drop your shoulder. perhaps, and annotate on his video. I don't know if this will work, but the possibilities are out there. I think it really is important to keep current with this stuff, because as things are changing, it's getting easier for us to do things. I've got a composition professor who wants his students to handwrite. Says, you know what? There's music software out there. Everybody can write notation by clicking a few keys or clicking the mouse. I want these people to draw their own doggone treble clef. I want them to notate in alto clef because I told them to, by hand. And so he's got a program, and its name escapes me, but he has students actually scan handwritten music, and it translates it into actual music. I don't know whose scanner is using it. Maybe even part of Sibelius or another notation package, but it can scan handwritten music, and as long as it's not awful chicken scratch, it can really read it. So,
which is helpful for if musicians were supposed to read it.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, either.
I do a great job reading my own manuscript, but my handwriting is not good enough for other people. It's not ready for prime time.
Great.
Well, yep. So Bethany's adding it's part of a lot of notation programs. I think it is these days. I have been out of the game a little bit on some of the notation software, but because the last version of Sibelius I had was, I think, Sibelius 4, and they're up to 9 or 10 now, maybe. So I'm sure that stuff's out there now, absolutely. But like I said, this is one of those, I've been doing it for a long time, and so I'm glad to see that finally we're getting the things that we just sort of wished for a long time ago.
Yeah. I've also taught quite a bit online in like the Skype format, where you can't have that simultaneous musical experience to like support someone in real time, but to be able to witness and say drop your shoulder, or you're tensing up, or things like that have been really useful. Have you done stuff like that, or enabled others to do work like that to open the number of students that are available for a specific program beyond just the local area?
Has it been easier for my instructors to expand that way? I don't have any private instructors here. Any of them that are currently doing online stuff like this. I get the impression it's all one-to-one, come to my office and we play. I think there are some of our voice instructors are doing a little bit of that kind of stuff. I think they're having students do some examples for them periodically, or some stuff like that. I did hear there is a piano instructor who, she did a couple of lessons. She had a student that had something that meant she was okay to play the piano, but she was very contagious, so she couldn't come to school, and so she sat at home and played her piano instead. And that worked really well for a quarter for a student that didn't want to get the incomplete, but could still do the thing away. It's tough. There are, you mentioned the synchronous video technology is getting better. We've got this same composition professor I mentioned, who has his students handwrite, does live music events with people in Germany and the Czech Republic fairly regularly. So whatever they're using is working pretty well, I gather. But as far as doing lessons via Skype, I think that it might work for some musical disciplines if you're going to do private instruction that way, but it's really hard, I think, to get that to happen in some disciplines. If I'm having the initial lesson, if I'm giving you your first lesson on the trombone, I can't fix your embouchure if I'm not there. Unfortunately, I can't just say, blow better, do it harder. That doesn't really tell you what you need to do to fix that particular problem you're having. Or, I can tell you about adjusting your slide position a little bit, or maybe I could do it with a more advanced way. But yeah, I don't think for beginners it's a good idea, unless again we get some virtual touch technology. If we get something like that, if they can wear a suit and I can go adjust their posture from remote with my Leap Motion or something, I'm there.
That might be a little ways off for the average music student. Yeah.
Again, I got to be patient in this line of work.
Well, what I've done in that situation is a lot of the kind of stuff that I'm teaching is vocal or, making instrument sounds like, beatbox kind of stuff. It's
the throat singing you did earlier. Yeah.
So it's less about, there's definitely like an embouchure that you need to be able to like make a sound happen, but it's so deeply experiential that whether I'm in the room or not, like it comes down to communicating in metaphors or like speaking in ways that are a little less mechanical in order to help people to find that, that proper kind of approach. And because I guess it's probably different than like the embouchure for a trombone or something, where there is a right way to do it. I'm constantly trying to help people experiment themselves to find what their right way is, as opposed to the way that I do it, which may or may not, be right.
Well, I mean, I guess you do have to consider, though, even you as more primarily a vocalist, the importance of breathing. There is a right and a wrong way to breathe if you're going to sing, no matter what you get. So you've got a little bit of those absolutes, but you're right. There probably are a few things that are just going to vary a little more with the performer potentially. You're dealing with anatomy rather than something that's produced in a factory.
Cool. Well, there's usually like a halfway break where we talk about the TLDC conference. I'll be on the game about this more tomorrow. I think everybody here is fairly familiar. I don't see any new faces today. This is all people who've been here before. So you know that TLDC is more than just a daily live stream. It is also a conference which is taking place in Phoenix, Arizona in January. And I'm sure that Luis can throw the link up there. I was just booking my hotel earlier this week and confirming what my role will be in there. We're actually, this hasn't been announced yet, although Brent likes the idea and Luis likes the idea. As part of the TLDC conference, there will be some music as well. And I'm hoping to organize kind of a facilitated open mic. There's so many folks here who are showing up to TLDChat. There's really a lot of cross-section between instructional design and minds that are really good at that and music, like the same kind of mind that can handle that kind of flow, that kind of perception of what it takes to design something well, tends to be fairly well adapted for music. I know there's quite a lot of folks here who play at least at home, in the garage or have had professional careers in music. So there will be a place for that at the TLDC conference. So if you're interested in that and you want to hear more about that, kind of a talent show, but it won't be a competition or anything. It'll just be fun. It'll be a way to jam together and see other sides of ourselves. So looking forward to that. No, there will not be karaoke. Thank you for asking that question, Marco. Karaoke will be off limits. Although, if you would like to mouth words while someone else sings them live, that would be acceptable. So we could have... I could sing something in the background and someone else can pantomime in the front. We can do that, but it will be live music. It will not be recorded music. So there's that. Every form of music, yes. But back to Josh. I have a few questions here that have been asked, surfaced from the chat into the polling kind of question feature here. I think we may have already covered them. Let me just check. What do you think of the primary challenges involved in bringing instruction for arts more fully online? I think we've kind of covered that one.
Translation.
Yeah. translation. Recommendations for other arts instructors longing to teach a wider online audience. We haven't really talked about that yet. So could you say a little bit about recommendations for other arts instructors?
I think in terms of, especially when I've got an instructor really sort of coming down that instructional design path and sort of moving in that direction to where we are able to design a really effective course and use and leverage some technology that makes other people go, wow. The next part is promotion, and it sounds completely, it sounds like marketing should be the last thing I have to do, but it's actually a big part of this job because I have to sell my services to people. They're not required to work with me necessarily. They're not necessarily, in some places, we've got over 25,000 students. There are definitely places in this university where there are faculty who may not be entirely aware that we exist. Yet we have consultants serving all of our colleges. We're spread in offices all over our campuses, and it's sometimes it's the promo piece. It's getting them to, it's me finding some people as an example who did something cool and getting, number one, them to be evangelists to the other people in their department and in their college to say, hey, look what this guy helped me do. Can you believe this? Why don't you go talk to him, see what they can do for you. And the other part is getting good examples that I can share. Sometimes this is, working to put together like a highlight reel video. We will get our media production and training department out and do some highlight reel kind of stuff, showing them in action or something like that. Just trying to find a way to make that happen online can then sell other future students on this kind of thing. One of the things we're trying to do with a lot of our faculty is to make a really nice intro video for them. And so, and not just a hello, my name is Cosmo Trueblood and I'm a professor of, such and such, sitting in their office with the bookshelf in the back. But like, we've got one where we got a professor who's jumping out of an airplane at the beginning of this, and she's an accounting professor, but just something, to show somebody something cool. Like there's another one where there's guys got marathon footage of himself, just something to provide some interest out there. So if we've got some promotional material that's online, that's great. The other part of it is straight up analog press and flesh, getting business cards and handing them out to people and walking around in the school and making sure you're talking to the deans and the chairs, and the most senior faculty you can find seem to have a bigger voice in the department. So if you can sell them your services, then it all starts to happen, around you. The evangelism part is the biggest one, and that's the single biggest part that's helped us expand our programs in general. In my department here is being able to have faculty say, wow, this was such an incredible experience, working with them. I can't wait to see what we're going to do next. And then other people go, geez, maybe I'm a little left out here. Hey, so, and then I get to hand out more business cards and shake more hands. So, it's very much a kind of socializing thing in a way too.
Well, that's a theme that's come up frequently in TLDChat is the importance of marketing and of the perception. And just like you'd make a demo for your band or, a trailer for your movie or whatever, being able to provide some kind of introduction for a potential audience, be that students or stakeholders, in your case, the other, people in lead chair of the department or instructors or whatever. Nothing succeeds like success. Being able to have an example that then others can talk about.
And I gotta say, like I'm finally starting to make inroads really into the School of Music now. I've been working here for 7 years. So it's taken a little bit, but it's one of those things where, you know, we have statistics every fall that we publish that talks about the college's online participation, and you know, we're usually historically pretty low, but that's been climbing every year because every year I meet a few more people and I sell a few more people on the strategy and the ideas, and then, you know, I have more friends who say, you know, talk to Josh. He can probably help you with this issue you're having, you know, or you want to teach that hybrid instead? Yeah, he knows what to do. You know, they have programs to help you, and, you know, people to help you build things, and all those kinds of things. So it really is about marketing.
Yeah. Well, cool. That's a fantastic answer. We talked a little bit about like Skype one-to-one kind of arrangements, which it doesn't sound like are really part of the model that you're working with at the college. Are you doing things at all that are in the VILT kind of setup, you know, a virtual instructor-led course where you can do one-to-many, but through a video portal or anything like that?
We do definitely have instructors who do synchronous sessions here. We are primarily, let's see, we've had several different things. Some of them are, we had Blackboard Collaborate. Now we've got UCU. We also, some of us use Zoom occasionally because it's got, well, we've been using it in the department to have meetings with faculty where, you know, we can meet remotely with them. Or if you're having a problem with your computer at home, you can actually call me up and get, you know, I can help you know why does this thing on your D2L site work at home but not at school, or vice versa. So that's been useful. We do have some who run synchronous class sessions. A lot of pushback comes from students
Really?
that say, yes, in terms of online classes, we mostly use an asynchronous model as much as possible. A couple of our colleges were previously using a very, very synchronous meeting model, but we run a program called the DePaul Online Teaching Series that prepares faculty to teach online and hybrid courses if they've been face-to-face previously. And we have a student panel every time we run this thing, and it's 3 times a year, and every time they tell us that the convenience of being able to take class whenever they want was a significant factor in them selecting an online course. And so sometimes, you know, I remember 15 years ago, the first time I ever had a synchronous online class session, it was like, wow, this is so cool. And I really didn't care that it was still during my regular class time. But nowadays, online synchronous chat is so common with people that they're still viewing it as, well, I still got to go to class. Right. I still got to be at class at the same time for 3 hours on a Wednesday night, and that's not different. And so a lot of times what we're doing is those classes, we're having them record lecture videos and handle things with discussion boards online, and, you know, quizzes and written assignments. So a lot of the synchronous stuff since then, we have probably, I don't know, probably 30 or 40 instructors here that are using it. It's a very small number compared to the people that are using it for office hours. That's a real popular one is virtual office hours, because then they could have them in the evenings if they want to, you know, anything like that. It's pretty much like traditional office hours. You know, most of the time nobody ever shows up. But, you know, occasionally you will get somebody who asks a really good question. And it is nice with some of the virtual office hours too, because you can, if you set yourself up the right way, you can have drawing tools, you can set the software up to show them a calculation that they need to see, or, you know, anything like that. So it does lend itself pretty well to the office hours. But we're not using it for a lot of direct instruction.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. It's interesting to hear how a lot of that pushback is coming from the students who want it to fit into their own schedule, but they're still paying the same price either way, right? For credits or for units.
Absolutely. Yes, they are. We don't have any differentiation between online and on ground courses. And so there's that is part of the reason, us as a service department, it really behooves us to make sure that we have instructors delivering good quality courses all the time. Mm-hmm. And one of our duties, and increasingly so in the last several years especially, has been that we're very concerned with the brand. We want to make sure that people coming to DePaul online courses for their education are getting the same quality DePaul education that they have come to expect on the ground. So we do use evaluation rubrics for all of these things. Courses frequently get reviewed. That said, there are people that don't go through our teaching series or don't go through some of our workshops and still teach online. And these are the people who our central support team will go fix something in a course site for someone, and they'll say, and then I'll get an email a little later that says, "Hey, Josh, you might want to have a talk with this professor because we just went into the course site and it's a disaster." So, so then I, once again, marketing, am reaching out and saying, "Hi there, we just helped you with a problem, and I noticed that there are some things in your course site that perhaps we might be able to utilize a little better. Can we set up some time to talk maybe so we can figure out how to get the most out of the resources you're using?" And, so it's a delicate process, I think, but it's very much a standardizing thing, I think, too.
When it comes to standardization, is any of that coming from the students as well? Like, why did it work in this way in this class and that way in that class, or something like that?
Some of it, absolutely. We do try, at the very least, with our GAs. If we're about to change something in the learning management system, turn on or off a feature, or do upgrades, things like that, we do try to do student testing, both with us and we have our GAs do it. We try and get some students to come in and test a feature and say, "What do you think about this?" Because a lot of what happens is student driven. We listen to that student panel in our DOTS program just as much as the faculty do, because ultimately we need to tell faculty to do the thing that the students are going to like, as well. Having the content in their courses, if it's organized in a weekly structure, having literally the items be in the same order every week makes so much more is so much more important to them than you think. If you normally have a reading and a video and a discussion board and then a quiz, and in week 4 some reason you put those in a different order, a couple of students are going to get thrown by this. And it really matters for the consistency for them. They value the consistency. They want they want to be regularly informed of their progress, especially in online courses. Everybody always wants to know, how am I doing? So we try really hard to give them frequent low stakes assessments. So they're getting grades often, so they have a good idea of how they're doing. We make sure that they have an adequate way to track their progress, and we try to make sure that the engagement is always there with the instructor. The instructor is regularly communicating with them, has set in the syllabus expectations about communication that says, "I'm going to return the work that you give to me in this amount of time, that I will be available and I will respond within 48 hours, that I will, that just to set, it's funny because it sounds kind of K-12, but it's like the social contract that everyone sets at the beginning of the year in elementary school classrooms. The syllabus does very much have to be that, especially for online classes. You got to have really clear expectations. They've got to know when they get to the site, where am I going next? What do I do here? We've got to teach our instructors to assume that their students have never had an online class before. Now, we know from the statistics that in most cases this isn't true. By the time they get their students, they already have. But at the same time, they have to design as though this is your first time ever coming to D2L. This is your first time ever coming to the course site.
Right.
Where do I get started? How do I do this stuff? So,
and the people who know how to skip it and go right to the content, the meat, right?
Bingo. Yeah, absolutely. But providing those instructions, providing some faculty information right up front, contact info, just letting them know that there's a clear path for you. You are supported. We're behind you, and and that you'll be able to tell what you've done already, what's happening now, and what's coming up next.
That's fantastic, and it's something that we don't in corporate ID work. It's something that gets lost in the shuffle often. Is exactly what you were just saying. That's that social contract with the people that are showing up. We have a path for you. Like we there's a goal here, and here's where you are in that path, and here's how you learn. With those low stakes assessments like you're talking about, here's how you get that refreshed often so that you know where you're at, how much more work you need to do, and that you are getting closer to a defined goal. When you're doing that, I assume that you're doing that just on a class by class basis, or do you have some kind of metrics or overall path that you're looking at for an entire academic career?
As far as I guess if you're talking about individual course design, we've department wide we have best practices, and we have a course site template that we have developed with all of the sample, the help documents, the documentation about the learning management system, places to go for help, all of that stuff that we pass out to courses. It's not imposed on every course, but it's something that we pass out to faculty that we're working with, and it does. We use a Quality Matters review system for our online courses. Some of you folks may be familiar with that evaluation system, but it's a rubric to evaluate online courses based on the content and the communication methods and all those kinds of things. And we do very much design our templates so that they can pass this thing. So some of the content, of course, is up to the faculty when it asks for their course and module level objectives and some of those kinds of things. But in terms of being able to satisfy is there technical help available? Is content readable and easy to follow? Are there directions at the beginning of the course site? So they show up, there's a welcome news announcement. We do try to build a lot of that stuff in to make sure that that they're going to get a consistent experience. And more now, especially, we're having, as at a higher level, we have at lots of our colleges, directors of online learning. And it is their job to sort of oversee on a programmatic level what's happening, because they have entire programs that they want to put online. We have a Master's of Accounting program online. We have a Master's of Science and Taxation online. They're working on getting an RN to an MS in nursing completely online. So they have to think about now, how are they going to package this? And so all of those things get so a template is hugely useful, because by the time you're in the 4th or 5th class of your online, some of these are cohort programs too. So you want to have that consistency from course to course, or else it's just all over the map in terms of your experience. Even as far as the user interface design, it's very, very important to make sure that you're giving them some sort of a consistent look and feel and a consistent you mentioned, you talked about the low stakes assessments. I've only done a little bit of work with corporate clients on some contract work, but milestones are hugely important. It's the same thing as the low stakes assessment. Rather than saying, oh yeah, we're going to do this one big project and here's what's going to be the midpoint and here's the end. I'm going to give you 7 or 8 little milestones, because it feels good when you satisfy one of those, and so it gives you all that extra boost to keep going, but it also lets them know that progress is happening, steadily it's happening, because it's being demonstrated to them over and over again.
That's great. And it's good to hear about the overall program design, and not just that you're designing, this class for this semester kind of thing, and thinking just in those like semester-long chunks. But
oh, and in reusability too. We talked about reusability too before. It's the same kind of thing. I'm designing this course with you because you don't just teach it this quarter, you teach it 3 times a year. And so we need to think far enough ahead that we're not just going to build the stuff for this quarter, but we want to build things that you can use for 6 quarters.
Right.
So that, we're going to record your videos in such a way that you can leave them for several years until you're thinking, oh God, what was I thinking about with my hair? And you have to redo it, that kind of thing. Or I'm sitting, or what was I wearing? I'm sitting on a terrible couch, something like that.
Well, that's the last question. We're closing up on the top of the hour here. The last question I wanted to ask is, for all of these resources that you're creating, about how long do they last? Do you have any rule of thumb about what constitutes a redesign in these parameters? Are you looking at metrics, or are you just going by what the instructor says, or what?
In terms of a redesign, when we do the design for a course for the first time, it's really just the first time, sort of feeling it out, kind of let's translate your face-to-face course online or into hybrid. And so it's trying to get tab A to fit into slot B. More than anything else, it's just saying, okay, here's all the stuff that you usually do. Let's make sure that we can do all of that. And sometimes in that first round, there's a pain point or two. There's something that either you try and it doesn't work so well, or there's something that you rack your brain over for a few weeks on, and you can't find a way to make it work given the technology that you have right now. And so, so for some of that, it's the technology changes and then we do a redesign, or it's been 3 editions of the textbook. Let's do a redesign just because some of the nature of the material of the course materials may have changed. On the other side, to produce things that are reusable, I've certainly got professors who shot videos 5 years ago that are still using them. Because they don't, and the main reason for that has been, I think that they don't look radically different, and they're not embarrassed by the way they look in by the way they come off in their videos. Because there are some things that do not change. It's worth doing that. Anybody who's in business has probably had to explain time value of money to people so many times they want to barf. So I have had several instructors now make a time value of money video, and they use it in a whole bunch of classes because that concept doesn't change. If there's something that you're going to do that stays the same forever, it's worth making a video about, so you don't have to talk about it in class, or you don't have to spend other time dealing with that stuff. But we certainly have some that have stood the test of time. Some of them, once in a while, we see some videos and we go, and then we give them a call and say, I think it might be time maybe we need to freshen up your videos a little bit. But for the most part, if you're doing them and you're thinking about, I encourage them to do them as subject-based sort of videos, instead of saying, this is chapter 4, part 1. Today we're going to talk about, let's look at break-even tables today. And here's all the stuff they need to know. And yes, it's taken from the textbook, but it's done in such a way that it's really a standalone resource instead of something that, I'm not giving you slides loaded with words to restate the textbook. The best sort of reusable stuff has a little bit of action to it, has something that you're involved in, and it gets over quick, so that I get that nugget of information, I'm done. Other than our poor tax professors who they have to reshoot videos almost every year because the Fed changes regulations and the numbers change on them. Now the strategy I'm using is I have them shoot these things, and I have them shoot videos, and then I have them highlight in a special color anything that changes from year to year. And so then they basically finish the video and say, these are accurate to 2014 statistics. If you need to use this year's numbers for the problems, you can look down right here at the attached PDF, and it's attached right under the video in something. So reusability really varies, but for the most part, the redesign occurs, I think, most often for me, at least when I get called out of the blue for a redesign, it's because professors are bored with their class. Things have been kind of going for a while, and yeah, it's cool, but I'm not getting that fire that I used to have in the classroom. And so I say, well, then we need to find an activity, some exercises, some assignments that we can give that are going to light that fire again. That's going to be something super cool that makes your students say, wow. Again, not using it because of the wow factor necessarily. Obviously, we are using it as a tool to fulfill the greater instructional needs. But it really helps if it's super cool and students, they like that. They like that in the evaluations, and they'll tell you so if you did something cool. So it's, that's also why I play with stuff all day, because I want them to be able to have that experience with their students too, to have them go, wow, I can't believe you did this. This was so cool. This is my favorite class this quarter, So I'm trying to do that with everybody. It doesn't always work, but, I get lucky sometimes.
That's great. Well, thanks so much for sharing your mad science ways with us a bit today. And if people wanted to reach out to you to further the conversation, how would they do that? What's a good way?
Josh.lund@depal.edu is the easiest way. And I'll write that out just in case.
Yeah, we can pop that in the chat. That's great. You have been watching TLD Chat. I'm Sam Rogers, Snap Synapse, everywhere you look, SNAPSYNAPSE. And thanks so much, everybody, for being here. I'm sorry we didn't get to the whole topic. It was active in the chat there for a bit about video length and stuff like that. We'll maybe look at having you back on at some point for a Video Friday where we can really just dive into the video part and why it is that you've made the choices that you have around 6 to 10 minutes and stuff like that. Thanks, Dana, Craig, everybody here who's Bethany, who's been part of the chat and very active. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow for Video Friday and live streaming every day, 8 a.m. Pacific. And TLDC is a conference, so go look at that thing. Great. Thanks again, Josh. It's been really great having you here.
It's been fun.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Take
Catch
care.
you tomorrow.